And our next speaker will be, let's see, Larry Wilkner, speaking on behalf of Reverend Gail, who is one of my predecessors. Larry.
Hello. This is a eulogy for Gary Latka, written by Reverend Gail Tapscott, who was Gary's minister for 17 years and his friend for 25 years. The philosopher George Santayana wrote, "When a man's life is over, it remains true that he was one sort of man and not another. A man who understands himself under the form of eternity knows the quality that eternally belongs to him, and knows that he cannot wholly die, even if he would, for when his life is over, the truth of his life remains." It is so hard to take in that Gary Latka has gone from us, but as the quote states, the truth of his life remains. It is hard to imagine a person who leaves more of a legacy behind at any age than Gary has left for all of us. His immediate family will be left with the biggest hole in light of his loss. But we are all part of his legacy of caring, warmth, fun, and wisdom. It is obvious from the extraordinary outpouring of memories and grief on Facebook that Gary will be missed far and wide, including by his young students in China. I knew Gary first in his role as a devoted father of Jennifer and Amy, and by extension, all the kids in the religious education program at the UU congregation of Fort Lauderdale. Gary chaired the RE committee and offered incredible support to the various RE directors. He made at least 2 pilgrimages to Boston, escorting different combinations of young people to learn about the Unitarian Universalist history and heritage. Some of the adventures on these trips, I was made to understand, will remain a secret for all eternity. It was a few years into my 17-year ministry at UU Fort Lauderdale that I learned what enormous leadership potential the still rather youthful Gary possessed. Taking the helm in a particularly challenging moment in UU CFL history, he proved adept at digging deeper into the underlying issues around conflicts and mediating between people and groups unable or unwilling to remain in dialogue or compromise. He was able to offer me ongoing support without appearing to be officially on one side or the other of areas of contention. Unlike some strong leaders, when the congregation moved on to smoother waters, Gary was thrilled to pass the torch to some new and excellent leaders that had turned up at UUCFL. However, he was always around, helping with building issues, stewardship campaigns, denominational affairs, the sound system, and showing up for social justice efforts. When the UUA General Assembly was meeting in Boston in 2004, Gary, the RE director at the time, and I took a road trip to Boston in a battered old van. The music drawn from Gary's enormous library was amazing, and the endless conversation never got old. By the end of that trip, Gary and I knew more about each other than was healthy, and oaths of eternal secrecy were sworn at the end. I once came to Gary's home when the girls were young to do a memorial service for a particularly beloved cat, as he felt it would be a comfort to them. When Gary announced his intention to marry Stacy, I was thrilled to meet her and then to officiate at their wedding, which was an all-time high point of UUCFL congregational life. Unfortunately, I was not sitting in the infamous table 5 at the reception, where I understand considerable bonding took place, along with secrets shared and more oaths of eternal silence. It was not until after the wedding that Gary had to break it to Stacy that he had a long-time obligation on Christmas Eve to ferry me from the early evening service at UUCFL to the late night interfaith extravaganza held by the Sunshine Cathedral in the big auditorium at the Broward Center. We normally shared a meal at Lester's, and then Gary dropped me off at the stage door and went in to be one of the few straight people at an LGBTQ midnight service that involved ballet, multiple music genres, prepackaged communion wine, and wafers for 2,000, and some of the most outrageous clerical vestments in world history. Then he drove me home. Stacy took this news with surprising good humor. Eventually, we started serving food after the service at UUCFL, and people started staying much later to drink the rum and hot cider. This, combined with a more subdued new pastor at the Sunshine Cathedral, caused these late-night holiday adventures to cease. Gary was always a veritable Mr. Claus at the holiday season, often being Santa at UUCFL holiday events and the DJ and party personality at parties of all kinds. He had a unique ability to seem like a best friend and supporter to anyone who he helped put on a special event. Gary had so many fine qualities, it is hard to catalog them all. He was warm, compassionate, and knowledgeable about so many things, especially music, popular culture, and astute comedians. He worshiped Jon Stewart. We went together to see Jon in person, and I noticed one of the last things he posted on Facebook was to point out that Jon's return to The Daily Show was a great day for America. Gary had the ability to relate one-on-one with all types of people and to work well in groups also. He could read a room better than anyone I have ever met. There were people who disagreed with Gary, but I am not aware of anyone who disliked him. Gary Latka seemed to excel in most relationships, those with family, work colleagues, and as a tireless church and denominational leader. His humor and loyalty, along with so many other qualities, are things we would all do well to emulate. I was dead serious when I suggested on a Facebook post that we need t-shirts with "What would Gary do" on them. To paraphrase from Shakespeare's Hamlet, he was a man, take him for all in all. We shall not look upon his like again. Thank you.